if you think about them constantly, but when you're actually together, you feel empty. Your chest aches when they pull away, but when they're close, you're not exactly happy, just less anxious. And that confuses you because isn't that what love is supposed to feel like? This desperate need for someone. You can't tell anymore if you love them or if you're just terrified of losing them. If you want them or if you've just gotten used to them being there. If this is passion or if it's just panic wearing a romantic mask. You've said I love you so many times it's become automatic. But when you're really honest with yourself, when you strip away the fear and the history and the investment, you're not sure what you actually feel. You know you need them. You know leaving feels impossible. You know the thought of them with someone else makes you physically ill. But is that love? Or is that something else entirely? Something darker that you've been calling love because you didn't know the difference. Because real love is supposed to feel good, isn't it? And this doesn't feel good. This feels like drowning while calling it swimming. You're afraid to be alone. That's the thought that keeps circling back. The one you keep pushing away because it makes you feel weak and pathetic. But it's there. This relationship might not be great, might not even be good, but it's familiar. It's something, and something feels safer than nothing. You think about ending it sometimes. You play out the scenario in your head, the conversation, the aftermath, your empty apartment, your empty bed, your empty life, and the panic sets in. Not because you'd missed them specifically, but because you'd miss having someone, anyone. That distinction terrifies you. You scroll through their social media when they don't text back. You check their location. You analyze their stories to see who they're with. You're not doing this because you trust them and feel secure. You're redoing this because you're desperate to maintain control over something that feels like it's slipping away. And when you catch yourself doing it, you feel disgusted. This isn't love. This is surveillance. You need constant reassurance. You ask them if they still love you, if they're happy, if everything's okay. And even when they say yes, you don't believe them. You're searching their face for evidence that they're lying, that they're planning to leave, that you're about to be abandoned. The reassurance only lasts a few hours before the anxiety creeps back in. You've shaped yourself around them. You like what they like now. You've adopted their opinions. You go where they want to go, eat where they want to eat, watch what they want to watch. Not because you're being kind or compromising, but because you're terrified that being yourself might make them leave. You've become a mirror, reflecting them back at themselves, because you think that's what keeps them interested. But you're disappearing. You can feel it. The things that used to matter to you don't anymore. Your hobbies have fallen away. Your friendships have faded because you've made them your entire world. You've poured all of yourself into this relationship, and now you're hollow. And the scariest part is you don't know who you'd be without them. You think about the beginning sometimes. The version of this relationship that existed in the first few months. It felt different then, didn't it? Lighter, easier, more joyful. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe it always felt like this, anxious and consuming and exhausting, and you've just convinced yourself it was better before. You can't remember the last time you felt peaceful around them. When being together felt like relief instead of obligation. When you laughed without forcing it. When you had sex because you wanted them, not because you were trying to keep them interested. When a conversation flowed naturally instead of feeling like an interview you're failing. The relationship has become a job. You're managing their moods, monitoring their interest levels, performing the role of partner while feeling increasingly disconnected from what that word is supposed to mean. You're exhausted, but you can't quit because you've invested too much, because the thought of starting over is overwhelming, because you don't know who you are outside of this anymore. Your friends have stopped asking how you're doing. They've watched you cancel on them over and over because your partner needed you. They've listened to you complain about the same problems for months, maybe years, and then watched you go back and do nothing. They care about you, but they're tired of watching you choose someone who doesn't choose you the same way. And you know they're right. You know this isn't what love is supposed to look like. But you were stuck in this loop where the fear of losing them is stronger than the reality of staying. Where the idea of them matters more than the actual relationship. Where you're holding on to who they used to be, who they could be, who you need them to be instead of seeing who they actually are. You're not in love, you're in fear. But you've been calling it love for so long, you don't know how to tell the difference anymore. What you're experiencing isn't love, it's attachment. And understanding the difference between the two might be the most important psychological distinction you ever learn. Attachment and love often get confused because they can coexist and they both involve strong feelings for another person, but they come from completely different places and create completely different experiences. Love is about connection, attachment is about need, and the difference between those two words changes everything. Attachment is rooted in fear. It's the panic you feel when you think about them leaving. It's the anxiety that drives you to check their phone, monitor their behavior, need constant reassurance. It's the desperate clinging to someone not because they make your life better, but because you can't handle the idea of them not being in it. Attachment asks, what will happen to me if I lose you? It's fundamentally self-focused, even when it appears to be about the other person. Love, real love, is rooted in appreciation. It's the genuine joy you feel in someone's presence. It's wanting good things for them even if those things don't include you. It's being able to see them clearly, flaws and all, and still choosing them without needing to change them. Love asks, how can I support you in becoming who you're meant to be? It's other-focused but from a place of fullness, not emptiness. Attachment says, I need you to be happy. Love says, I'm happy and I want to share that with you. That difference is everything. The psychological roots of attachment go deep, usually back to childhood. Attachment theory, developed by psychologist John Bowlby, explains that the way we bonded with our early caregivers shapes how we attach to romantic partners as adults. If your early attachments were inconsistent, anxious, or unpredictable, you likely developed an anxious attachment style. An anxious attachment in adulthood looks a lot like what people call intense love. But it's not intensity born from passion. It's intensity born from fear of abandonment. Your nervous system learned early on that love is unreliable, that people leave, that you have to work hard to keep people around. So now, in your romantic relationships, you're constantly in fight or flight mode. You're hypervigilant to any sign that your partner might be pulling away. You interpret normal behavior as rejection. You need constant proof that you're still wanted because you never feel secure. This is why attachment feels so consuming. Your brain has identified your partner as essential to your survival, not in a practical sense, but in an emotional one. Your nervous system treats their potential absence like a life or death threat. That's why the thought of them leaving creates actual physical panic, racing heart, tight chest, inability to breathe. Your body is responding as if you're in danger, but you're not in danger, you're just afraid. And you've mistaken that fear for depth of feeling. Real love feels different in your body. It feels calm, secure, grounded. Yes, there's excitement and attraction and desire, but underneath it all is peace. You don't feel like you're constantly on the edge of losing something. You don't feel like you have to perform or prove or monitor. You feel safe. And safety, true emotional safety, is the foundation of real love. Attachment creates obsession. You can't stop thinking about them, not because they're so wonderful, but because your brain is trying to solve the problem of how to keep them. Your thoughts circle endlessly. What are they doing? Do they still love me? What did that text mean? Why didn't they call? Your mind is consumed because it's in problem-solving mode, trying to manage a threat that feels constant. Love creates presence. You think about them because thinking about them makes you smile. You're excited to see them, not relieved. You're curious about their day, not interrogating them to look for inconsistencies. Your thoughts about them are joyful, not anxious. There's a lightness to it instead of heaviness. Attachment makes you smaller. You shrink yourself to keep the relationship. You ignore red flags. You accept treatment you know is wrong. You give up parts of yourself, your interests, your friends, your values because you're terrified that being fully yourself will make them leave. Attachment says, I'll be whoever you need me to be if you just don't go. Love makes you bigger. It encourages your growth. It celebrates your individuality. It wants you to be fully yourself because that's who it fell in love with. Real love doesn't require you to diminish, it invites you to expand. Your partner should make you feel more like yourself, not less. Attachment is about possession. It's jealous, controlling, and territorial. It needs to know where they are, who they're with, what they're doing. It feels threatened by their independence. It wants to merge completely because separation feels dangerous. Attachment can't handle the reality that your partner is a separate person with their own life, because that separateness feels like the beginning of abandonment. Love is about freedom. It trusts, it gives space, it understands that your partner having their own life, their own friends, their own interests makes them more interesting, not less. Love isn't threatened by independence because it's secure in the connection. It knows that real partnership is to whole people choosing each other, not to half people clinging together to feel complete. Here's the test that cuts through everything. When you think about your relationship, do you feel expanded or contracted? Does being with them make you feel more alive or more anxious? Does the relationship add to your life or does it consume it? Can you be fully yourself, or are you constantly editing yourself to keep them happy? If you're honest about the answers, you'll know whether what you have is love or attachment. Recognizing that what you're feeling is attachment and not love doesn't make it hurt less. If anything, it hurts more. Because it means you've been investing in something that was unreal in the way you thought it was. It means the foundation you've built your life on is shakier than you wanted to believe. But recognizing it also gives you power, because you can't change what you can't see clearly. If you're in an attachment-based relationship, you have to ask yourself a hard question. Are you staying because you genuinely love this person, or are you staying because you're afraid to be alone? Those are two very different motivations, and they lead to very different lives. Staying out of fear will never lead to happiness. It will lead to resentment. You'll resent them for not being what you need. You'll resent yourself for not being brave enough to leave. You'll waste years trying to force something that was never meant to be a forever thing. And the whole time you'll be too attached to leave and too unhappy to stay. That's not a relationship, that's a trap. The path forward requires you to develop what you're most afraid of. The ability to be alone. Not lonely. Alone. There's a difference. Loneliness is a void you're desperately trying to fill. Aloneness is a state of self-sufficiency where you're complete on your own. You have to learn to be okay by yourself, to sit with yourself, to enjoy your own company, to build a life that feels full even without a partner. Because until you can do that, you'll never be able to tell the difference between love and attachment. You'll keep choosing people out of need instead of genuine connection. This means reconnecting with yourself, the version of you that existed before this relationship, or the version of you that wants to exist but has been suppressed. What do you actually like? What are your opinions when they're not borrowed from someone else? What do you want to do with your life when you're not shaping it around another person? Those questions are terrifying when you've lost yourself in a relationship, but answering them is how you get yourself back. If you're in a relationship right now and you're not sure if it's love or attachment, you need to create space. Not necessarily a breakup, but space. Time apart. Time to feel what you feel when they're not there. If what you feel is primarily anxiety and emptiness, that's attachment. If what you feel is peace mixed with genuine missing them, that might be love. Real love can handle space. It can handle you having your own life. It can handle uncertainty without falling apart. Attachment can't. Attachment needs constant contact and reassurance because it's built on fear. And fear can't tolerate distance. You also need to examine what you're getting from this relationship versus what you're giving. If you're doing all the emotional labor, all the compromising, all the sacrificing, and they're just receiving, you're not in a partnership. You're in a one-sided attachment where you're trying to earn love that should be freely given. Real love is reciprocal. Both people give. Both people compromise. Both people show up. Both people invest. If it's consistently one-sided, you're not experiencing love. You're experiencing your own attachment playing out while they benefit from it. The healthiest thing you can do is become someone who doesn't need a relationship to feel whole. And then, from that place of wholeness, choose to be in a relationship because it adds to your life, not because it completes it. That's when you'll find real love. Not when you need it. When you're ready for it. Love is supposed to feel like freedom, not captivity. Like expansion, not contraction. Like peace, not panic. If what you're feeling is constant anxiety, that's not love. That's your nervous system telling you something is wrong. You won't have to stay attached to someone just because you've been there for a long time. You don't have to call it love just because it's intense. Intensity isn't depth. Sometimes it's just pain. You deserve a love that doesn't require you to lose yourself. A love that feels safe. A love that's built on choice, not need. If this gave you the clarity you've been searching for, we're here every week with conversations like this one. Real, honest, unflinted. Subscribe to keep going deeper. The difference between love and attachment is the difference between living and surviving. Choose living.